Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. A small technical glitch, but our staff acted heroically to get us back online with only 11 minutes of a delay. So well done. Thank you, everybody. My name is Ryan Painter. I'm chair of the Greater Victoria School District. This is the Board of Education meeting for April 25th. First, I want to acknowledge the Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Saltnese nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. I also want to acknowledge and recognize the presence tonight of the chair of the Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory, Janice Simcoe. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Chair Simcoe. It is a real honor and a real pleasure to have you joining us this evening. I'm really happy to have you here. Can we first have an approval of the agenda? And then there are some amendments, but we'll go to the approval first to put it on the floor. I've got Elaine and Tom. And so I have one amendment already, which is to add Karen Kwan to community presentations under A8. So she will be a presentation added there. And then I have another addition to the agenda from Trustee Duncan, and it was sent to trustees and staff, so we should have it, and I trust trustees also have that as well, so we can add that to the agenda too. My apologies, Nicole, did you want this sorry, Trustee Duncan, did you want this under new business tonight? I'm assuming that's probably the best space for it.
Yeah, that would be great, thank you. Yeah, I think it would be H1C, I believe.
You scrolled much faster than I did. Okay, H1C, perfect. So we'll add it to that. Any other additions to the agenda this evening? Seeing and hearing none, can I please have approval of the agenda? All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Sorry, I'm just moving all the squares around. Perfect. We'll now go to A3, Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory, UFIA, terms of reference. And again, I want to acknowledge, recognize, and honor the presence of Chair Janice Simcoe of UFIA here this evening. And I will turn the floor over to Superintendent Deb Whitten.
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Painter, and welcome, Chair Simcoe and members of the Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory, also known as UFIA. I've had the privilege and opportunity to sit with Chair Simcoe, Dr. Shelley Nemi, and members of the Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory as they write the UFIA terms of reference. These rich conversations and the completed terms of reference are critical in providing voice to the school district on behalf of urban Indigenous children and families. UFIA's presence ensures that the district will uphold the respect and dignity of Indigenous students, families, and communities. The terms of reference confirms a mutual commitment and shared accountability. I'd like to recognize with appreciation the writing team that came together to co-design the TOR. Many hours were spent conversing, collaborating, and co-creating while keeping the students and families at the center. I look forward to the important work ahead as outlined in the advisory's guiding principles, purpose, and vision. At this time, I would like to once again welcome Chair Janice Simcoe and invite her to share some words.
Okay, thank you so much. Superintendent Whitten, it sounds like what we are doing is at this table is we're using fairly formal language. So my name is Janice Simcoe. I'm Anishinaabe Ojibwe woman. I've lived on these beautiful lands for all of my adult life. I recognize the land is coming alive again as spring moves forward. And we're starting to see, even though it's a bit late in the calendar for spring to be this way, we're starting to see it. And so I am grateful very much for the spaces that we live in and for the people who have welcomed us here. So I'm the chair of the Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory, which we call UFIA. I've been serving the Greater Victoria School District for many years. I'm not sure how many. I know that it's well over 20. There's been a number of councils and groups that I've been able to be a part of of Indigenous people who are serving the school district in order to serve the children that are part of the school district. We most recently emerged from the Aboriginal Nations Education Council, and that was a very inclusive and very relational council that got together. It included parents, it included those who provide education and education services to Indigenous students. It included the trustees, it included the superintendent's office, principals and vice principals, the GVTF, and we worked together really in good ways. We built 2 Aboriginal enhancement agreements together. We developed philosophy of Indigenous education. We provided a framework for information to be supported out. But eventually the nations, in working with their local education agreements, or the beginnings of the local education agreements, and as we really saw that self-determination was moving forward, they really started focusing on their what they were building and what they have built now. So we came together. This is back in the days when Pete Langstrad was the superintendent. Butch Dick was representing Songhees, and I was there with the old Aboriginal Nations Education Council and Pete, and we agreed to develop a 3-house model where there was each nation plus the urban people. When we brought it back to the table, the Métis Nation, Greater Victoria, reminded us they are a distinct people and they should be recognized as a house, and we all completely agreed. So that's where the 4 houses came from. We began being asked why we didn't have a terms of reference, and we really felt like we had operated very well without some of the constraints and restrictions that a form of policy or policy-ish stuff can provide. We had been a very fluid, river-like group. We made our decisions based on relationship, and the group expanded and contracted depending on interest, depending on what issues were taking place, and depending on how the flow of different relationships across community went. So we did not prioritize the development of a terms of reference, and then we lost our voice. We fell out of the loop of decision making when some decisions were made about how Indigenous people would be represented, particularly at the trustee table. So we pulled together again and said, okay, well, we will build a terms of reference then. And we were very lucky to have the incredible support of Shelley Nemi in building this, and very much the support of all of the community members who came together with us to create this document that has been sent out to you. So I'm pleased to be able to be part of presenting this document to you. As you will have seen, it represents our values. And our values really are about making educational and cultural contributions to the education of our children and all children in the Greater Victoria School District. And we really do want the education that our kids receive to be relevant, safe, and joyful. So we hope that we're going to be able to move forward as expediently as we can. We have done what one of our young members said, and I thought she was so wise in talking about what our work is doing is as the urban community, we're setting the table. So we're setting the table for the feast of learning that we want our children to engage in. So I'm really open to comments, questions, responses, whatever you would like. So, Shimigwech.
Thank you, Chair Simcoe, and thank you, Superintendent Whitten, for bringing us into this in a very important, meaningful, and grounded way. Really appreciate all that you have provided for us in terms of information to take this in. I will now, we do have a motion, but before we go to the motion in a more formal capacity, I would like to open the floor to trustees if they have any comments or questions that they would like. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this. This is a fabulous terms of reference. I really like how fulsome it is, and how I really think that it will really help lead and guide you in your discussions and how you move forward. And I can really see a lot of different contribution in it, which makes me feel like it will be very successful because I can see many different voices in it, which is not always an easy thing to do in a terms of reference. And as you said, it's like you've set the table. The one thing that I don't see in this terms of reference, which, you know, is by no means the way to, that I'm not going to vote for in favor of this, but what I do note is that how will you tell the story afterwards of what happened at the table? Because I don't see any recording of minutes or of the decisions. I do love the way that you're going to make decisions, but there's no way to record that decision in minutes or something like that. It's the one thing I just didn't see in there that you might want to consider. Maybe it's in a different place that you as a committee come up with and decide how that's going to happen. But I just thought that, you know what, I think that you're going to do really, really great work. And minutes or something of that records that is so that when people do come and go, there's still that history that's not lost. So, but thank you very much for that work. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much, Janice and Shelley. Thank you.
So may I respond?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I think that there's an assumption on the final page or on page 5 under meetings. School district members are responsible to organize and host regular meetings. That organizing meetings means doing the entire thing. So we may have made an assumption in there, and there certainly could be if it would make it more receivable, I guess, for the Board of Trustee, that it could say organize, host, and make records of meetings. But I see that organizing meetings includes having records of them.
Thank you for that clarification. That makes sense if that is what's expected, but we're obviously far more formal in our work that but thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker and Janice as well for the clarification. Jordan, go ahead.
Just want to express my gratitude for all the work that went into this, Janice, and everyone around the table for pulling this together. I know it's been a long and winding journey to get to this point, and you have all done such great work. It was such an honor to sit at the table with you way back when, and to see this coming to fruition is pretty exciting. So I think, Janice, are you going to be retiring this year?
I am.
So that's going to be a huge shift and some very big shoes to fill. So I do just want to raise my hands to you for all the work that you've done for our district and for the students that we serve, generations of students, and just really acknowledge that work. And I hope that we will be able to have a good relationship with your whoever is going to be stepping up to support this work. And I hope also that the terms of reference can be, something that is reviewed over time, because, it may need to shift and change and adjust. And I think that's how it should be. So I'm looking forward to see the growth and change with UFIA, but also really sad to see you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Trustee Waters, I don't think it's a stretch to say that I think all of us share your sentiments, certainly in terms of the work and the time and the energy and the emotional and physical labor that Janice, that you have brought to your work. I've only been on the school board for 4 years, but I know well of the work that you've done. So thank you so much for being here and for giving so much to everybody and students now, and certainly who have gone forward, who have received success because of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from members at the table? Seeing and hearing none, I want to just once again thank Janice, the whole team, Dr. Naimi, everything that you have all done to bring this forward. It's really, really exciting, and there's hard work here. I know Dr. Naimi says hard work, and I feel that here, so thank you. I will read the motion that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, approve the terms of reference for the Urban People's House Indigenous Advisory, UFIA, as presented. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Trustee Duncan. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much, and I wish the best to everybody. Thank you for your good words and for listening to me speak. And I will leave now. Enjoy your meeting. Okay.
Thank you, Janice.
Okay.
Have a lovely
All right.
evening.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What a great way to start. Approval of the minutes. Can I please, sorry, pardon me. We have 3 sets of minutes. Would anybody be opposed to moving all of these as a whole for March 14th, April 4th, or April 7th? Or if we want to split them out, I can do that too. I'm seeing hands up, so I imagine we want to split these. Is that right? Okay, so we'll do March 14th. So can I have a mover for approving the March 14th minutes? Elaine moved, seconded by Tom. Any comments or questions about the March 14th regular board minutes? Trustee Whitaker, please.
Yeah, can we scroll down to F in the question period? If you look at the very first question and the very first answer, the answer is the very first question.
Can you tell us, sorry, Trustee Whitaker, can you tell us the page on the pack-up? That's just more helpful.
It looks like 15. Either 15 or 9.
Okay, so F, I see question is the same as the answer. Okay, I see that. So
can we get the appropriate answer inserted and amend that?
We will get that. Yeah, we will get that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the March 14th minutes? Seeing and hearing none, can I have a vote on the approval? All those in favor? Any opposed? And none opposed. Sorry, Jordan, did I?
Sorry, I meant to vote in favor. I don't know why. I think I might be experiencing a bit of delay, so.
Okay, that's okay. I will always make sure to check just in case. So none opposed. That is unanimously approved. Can I have a mover for the April 4th special board meeting minutes, please? Moved by Elaine, second by Tom. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, can I have can I call the question on approval? All those in favor of the April 4th? And opposed? None opposed. That is unanimous. Thank you. And then approval of April 7th special board meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve? Moved by Tom, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion on the April 7th special board minutes? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call the question on approval. All those in favor? And any opposed? Not opposed. That is unanimous. We will now go to community presentations. We have Karen Kwan joining us tonight. Hello, Karen. Great to have you. Glad you're able to, we were able to make that work and have you come in this evening. Did you have a formal presentation or were you speaking this evening?
Just speaking.
All right. So what I'll do is I will time you for 5 minutes. I won't interrupt you unless you'd like me to at a minute left. Would that be okay? No, you're good. All right.
Yeah, I'm
I will
good.
let you know.
Sorry.
No, I will. So then I will put the timer on here for 5 minutes and I will let you know when your time is up and I'll let you wrap if you need.
All right. Maybe just before we start, I just want to express my appreciation for finding time for me to speak to you this evening. Thanks to everyone for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to have helped facilitate. Okay, Karen, so the ball is in your court. Your 5 minutes starts now. Thank you.
Great. I'm a third-generation visitor on these lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, including Songhees and Esquimalt nations. As part of the important work of reconciliation, I am proud that we are building better and more enduring relationships with the war houses to bring the education of all of our children more in harmony with Indigenous culture and beliefs. Time and time again, research has shown that studying music enhances learning and requires wider use of varying areas of the brain. Music education creates stronger neural connections, better information processing, higher IQ, better memory and attention, better motor coordination, improved language abilities, increased emotional resilience, increased empathy, and increased attention span and focus. In addition to improving academic skills, elementary students starting to study a musical instrument also learn critical life lessons. Playing in an ensemble teaches young people teamwork. Students learn that when a group perseveres and practices, they get better. This builds confidence, self-esteem, and trust. I am the chair of Advocacy for Music in Schools, or AMUS. Over the past weeks, I've received many emails, phone calls, and text messages from organizations, community members, individuals, and foundations, all looking to support the Elementary Strings program. I believe we would be able to raise enough money to keep this program running without any financial support from the board. There would be no work by the superintendent or her staff to secure the funding. She would only need to communicate with myself to confirm logistics of the donations and the issuance of tax receipts. At your April 7th special budget meeting, Trustee Nicole Duncan brought a motion forward with regards to a possible donation from an unnamed foundation to supplement the Elementary Strings program. I am willing to continue to work directly with this foundation and other entities to come up with the full amount required to fund this program. However, one of the main reasons donors would not like to identify until a motion such as this is passed is that they are concerned that funds will not be used for the purpose they are being donated for. I spoke to you last year about the lack of trust that students, parents, and community members have in this board. I believe that the numerous actions of this board in this current 21-22 school year have only heightened this feeling of mistrust. In order to secure donations to continue this program, this board must approach this opportunity with open minds and a willingness to show that they aim to regain the public's trust. I also urge this board to explore a program review of elementary school strings in particular, but also other niche programs within the district. SD61's policy and regulation 6162.8 speaks directly to this district's assessment of programs and students. In fact, regulation 6162.8, specifically part 4, outlines that all elementary school programs and practices shall be evaluated every 6 years. It goes on to specify provisions for facilitating schools in conducting program evaluation activities. It even specifies that the evaluation will be reviewed at an in-camera meeting of the committee of the whole board. Further, this regulation goes on to outline the implementation of recommendations, procedures for submission, and monitoring of the follow-up plan. While the Budget Advisory Committee may have received a presentation of sorts on how music is delivered in this district and to whom, this level of program review has never been conducted, let alone in the past 6 years. Teachers are the cornerstone of any education program, curriculum, school district, or even Ministry of Education. Teacher morale, especially among music teachers in our district, now is at an all-time low. Teachers are starting to reevaluate their careers. We saw a mass exodus of healthcare workers during the pandemic. Teachers, on the other hand, showed up for their students every day, giving them a sense of security and belonging and allowing students to feel a sense of normal. I cannot stress enough how unheard, unnoticed, unimportant, and undervalued teachers feel right now. Yet once again, this board has made the majority of cuts for the budget to programs closest to students and teachers, despite all that they have endured during the pandemic and despite the huge outpouring of feedback from students and families to this board about how they feel that music is crucial to elementary school education. I strongly urge this board to keep open minds to the possibility of bringing in alternatives to fund and run programs, specifically elementary strings, so that, in the words of our strategic plan, Each student in our world-class learning community has an opportunity to fulfill and pursue their aspirations. And I thank you for your time.
Karen, you were spot on 5 minutes. Well done. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. I know the board, and certainly speaking as the chair, appreciates your input and takes it very seriously. So thank you for bringing it to us tonight. Thank you. We'll now go to correspondence. Trustees, you have 12 items of correspondence in front of you. Was there any that trustees wanted to pull for discussion? I'll go to Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to pull B8, please. And in addition to B8, I'd also like to pull B9.
Okay. So we have a request to pull B8 and a request to pull B9. Just a note for trustees, I'm not pulling B6, but B6 will come up under Chair's report B, just to make a note of that if you want to go to that at that point. So first, sorry, turning back to trustees, does anyone else wish to pull anything further? No? Okay. B8, go ahead, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. So B8 outlines, it was a letter received on the 15th of March. It outlines a number of concerns around the suspension of 2 trustees. And I think at this point, it requires a response. And so I don't know if we can, by consensus, agree that the board chair write a response to the questions outlined in the letter, or if we need a motion in order to do that.
Sure. So just for trustees, I'm just trying to find where this starts in our pack up. I believe it is page 46, but just double checking. Okay. Page 46 in the pack up, I think. Is that correct, Trustee Duncan? I just want to make sure I'm directing everyone to the right page because it's a long letter. Okay, trustees. So it is page 46 of the pack up. It is a long letter. As I know, I've been through this letter. There are a number of questions of various depth required to answer. It would take a significant amount of time, certainly given some of the legal references and other references that would require me to return for some of the answers to legal counsel to receive responses. And it is a very in-depth letter. It's not a criticism. It's just a fact. It is a long letter, several pages with lots of questions requiring quite a bit of work and time to answer. So I'm wondering how trustees would like the chair or would like to handle this. If trustees have any thoughts or questions. Trustee, okay, sorry. Nicole, you did raise it. So if you want to speak, and then I'll go to Trustee Whitaker. There's no motion on the floor, folks. This is just being pulled for discussion. So Trustee Duncan and then Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, just very briefly, just want to say that I think the letter outlines a number of questions that have been asked for some time now, and not just by the individual who wrote the letter, but also by a number of our stakeholders around the table who've raised the same, if not similar, concerns. And so in my view, in answering the letter formally in writing, it'll go, I think, a long way to addressing the questions, not only of this individual, but also of our stakeholders, many of whom have withdrawn their participation around our board table as a result of this. And so I think it's one step that we could take in order to address some of their concerns.
Sure. To that point, Trustee Whitaker, I've got your hand. You can put it down. I'll go to you next. But before, just on that point, I do want to note that, and again, I have poured through this several times. My memory of the bulk of it is, because there's so much here, is a little foggy, but much of these questions have been answered at various points and stages of this process since January, or pardon me, since February. So certainly in the public letter that I submitted, in various engagements through board meetings, committee meetings, private emails, specifically to the letter writer, So just making sure that it is the point was made, these questions have been asked, just providing a response that, in my opinion, at least for the majority of the questions that I believe are here, I believe that they have been answered, perhaps not to the degree that the letter writer would like, or perhaps there's disagreement with the answers that have been given. But my perspective is that by and large, these questions have been answered. I will go to Trustee Whitaker next.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments on that. I too feel that there should be a response. So I'm going to put forward a motion to direct the chair to reply to Mr. F in whatever capacity that the chair is able to. I think, as you've said, Chair Painter, you've already answered a number of the questions somewhere in some place. So I think that those ones would be easy to pull up. I'm not by any means suggesting that, because I think there is a lot of legal questions that will be answered by the judicial review, but I do think a response, saying this will be from the judicial review or something like that would be appropriate. I just think it is appropriate because there are so many questions that there is a response. So that is my motion, to direct the chair to reply to Mr. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say the last name.
Farber.
Farber, thank you. In whatever capacity you're able to.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Appreciate that. So do we have a motion on the floor? Is there a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Duncan. Okay, so Trustee Whitaker, you moved and motivated. I'd allow you more time to motivate if you'd like, or I can go to Trustee Duncan if you prefer. Trustee Duncan, okay. Seconder, you're free to motivate a second time if you'd like, and then I can go to the rest of the board.
I just briefly emphasize, I think, what Trustee Whitaker has pointed out. Certainly no one's expecting the board to go and seek independent legal advice. And I think, as the chair has pointed out, many of these questions have been discussed or have come up in correspondence that's already been sent. And so drawing on those items, providing additional details where we can, and then highlighting the outcome or pending outcome of the judicial review would certainly be a start. I think certainly what I picked up on in the letter that I think would be helpful in particular to address in a more specific way is the question of the legislative authority, the specific legislative authority that the board relied on in suspending the two trustees. That has come up a number of times, but not just from this individual, but also from our stakeholders. So I think that particular point would be very, very helpful to respond in greater depth. So I do support the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Other trustees who wish to comment? Seeing none, so I'm just going to make a brief comment just in relation to Trustee Duncan's specific reference to the legislative authority. Again, I appreciate that is of significant interest, and I think the answer previous to that, certainly in terms of making its decision, has been answered on numerous occasions to the best of the capacity that I have as chair, certainly given the work that the board has done in consideration of this issue, but also given legal advice at this point. And I can say quite clearly, I would not be able to provide a more thorough, in-depth, responsive answer that I think would, in my experience with engaging I think with this level of detail that this letter writer is expecting, would be able to satisfy. And I'm just anticipating, given the back and forth, that is not going to be able to happen. It doesn't mean I can't try, and it doesn't mean I can't go to legal counsel to try to provide some more information. I do also want to acknowledge, I think correctly, Trustee Whitaker has said that there is a judicial review in process. Many legal questions pertaining to that I'm not able to answer, and in fact, legal counsel has advised that I don't, because there is a legal proceeding currently ongoing in this issue. So it does limit the ability of me to answer some of these questions, even though I have provided answers before, and I can duplicate those and copy and paste and do all of that work. There are some that I won't be able to answer, some that I won't be able to expand on. And if that is where the board wants me to go, I have no problem doing it. but I do want to provide context for the specific mention, which was raised by Trustee Duncan around legislative authority, to provide some context for trustees. Okay, Jordan, I see your hand, and then I think I've got Elaine.
Wow, child, bringing me some banana bread. So I guess my concern is that a lot of this lives in camera and is privileged, I think. And then there is a process going forward that's going to do a really good job of clarifying all of this. So my original question was just going to ask, like, you know, is the idea here that Chair Painter forward Mr. Farber's letter to legal counsel for a response? Because that is at the cost of the board. If that's not what we're talking about, then maybe some of the solution is you provide the information you've already provided and you let them know that you're not able to provide any more information at this time. Because I understand that it is kind of a challenging situation when there are legal processes underway. And it seems to me quite clear that the information that's been provided to date isn't satisfactory. And no judgment on that one way or another, but I'm just not sure the best use of time and resources when hopefully fairly soon we'll have a clear court decision that everyone can pore over in some detail. My understanding from what Ryan has said in the past is that there has been legal advice against going down into the rabbit hole in terms of answering these very detailed questions. So I just want to, I guess, caution us. I don't want us to not respond to Mr. Farber, but I think sometimes a response might just be that we're not able to provide you, answers at this time for X, Y, and Z reason. Although I think you've also tried to do that, Chair, but maybe formally, given that we have a motion on the floor. So I guess I could support the motion if it includes Chair Painter simply responding saying, we can't provide these answers right now because we're in the middle of legal processes and a lot of the information is privileged.
Thanks, Jordan. And I see Trustee Whitaker, I'll go to you next, but in terms, the motion is directed at me. So in terms of the ask, I'm interpreting the motion in the way that you have laid it out. My assumption is that the board and Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Duncan, in providing, I think, some general allowance for me to answer this in the best way that I possibly can, with clarity, is what's here. I do want to respond to your question about counsel, though. I would have to go to counsel for this. It is not something that I could just completely go through and answer with definitive positive assurance on all of them. That is a cost. So, and I've done it once already today because we received an email that I did not have the legal capacity to answer. So I had to go to counsel. That's a cost when that happens. So again, I'm not trying to dissuade. I'm trying to provide information for the board so they can make an informed decision. So I would need to go to legal counsel for some of the questions, not necessarily the balance, but a number of these. Trustee Whitaker, was there we've spoken to the motion? Was there a question?
I just wanted to provide a point of clarification. Sure. Because my motion does say in whatever capacity the chair is able. I specifically said, don't go to a lawyer. And if every answer is, this is up to the judicial review, then that's your answer. It's about communicating back. This writer has said that they've asked. So that is the piece that needs to be answered. If you are unable to answer, if the answer is, I don't know, then that's the answer. Right. So sure. It's not, I don't think that my motion is intended to make a huge amount of work, but it is to just clarify.
You've provided good clarity for me, Trustee Whitaker, and I appreciate that. You've given me a bit more leeway there. And hearing you say don't go to the lawyer does give me a bit more of a narrow focus in terms of the work I would need to put into this. In terms of providing sufficient responses, which may well be for a good number of these, we are currently in a judicial process. and I can't provide an answer. Trustee Leonard, go ahead.
Thank you. I know that for the letter that was requested and came out on February 24th, legal counsel set the parameters of what could be included in that letter and how much we could say. And so I don't think anything's changed since then about what we can say and how much we can put out in the public. So barring referring that letter back to the letter writer again, and then reiterate that the other answers will come after the court judicial review is complete, I think is the best that we can do at this time. But I do like the fact that Trustee Whitaker's motion is not directing you to go back to legal counsel, because we've already been down that road. And I don't think that legal counsel could say anything different at this point in time. Otherwise, they would have already said it and it would have been included in the earlier letter. So thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This has been a good discussion, and I appreciate everybody's input on this. So I'm ready to call the question on the motion, which is to direct me to write a letter in, and Trustee Whitaker has the wording, but in whatever capacity I'm able to answer to respond to this this letter. And Trustee Whitaker, I'm sorry, can you
I mean, to just reread that, sorry.
Oh, no, I think we've got it. Just make sure staff receives the motion. Thank you. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, let us go back up to correspondence. I believe it was B9, correct, Trustee Duncan, that you wanted to pull next? GVTA to Minister of Education Lansdowne South proposal. Okay, Trustee Duncan, over to you for B9.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the letter that was sent on the 17th of March from the president of the GVTA to Minister Whiteside, outlining their concerns around the proposed Lansdowne South land disposal, and specifically asking the minister to reconsider providing their approval for the sale, and in particular, the last paragraph of the letter I wanted to highlight, which says that the board was required to engage in broad consultation, and this has not been done, nor has the position of the community stakeholders and rights holders been acknowledged. The community opposes this land sale. Both VC PAC and the GVTA spoke against the sale before boycotting future meetings because of this dysfunction of this board. It should also be noted that this sale was approved by a 4-3 vote, while 2 publicly elected trustees are perhaps unlawfully suspended. If those trustees had been present, the GVTA has every confidence the vote to dispose of this land would have failed. And it concludes with, "We urge you to stop this sale." So I just wanted to highlight that particular letter that we received on the 17th. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any discussions on B9? Seeing and hearing none, we will go on to trustee reports. Chair's report. I have no report this month, but I did want to go to B, return to in-person meetings. So I had asked this letter, which was sent to me, but I am unable to find it for whatever reason in my inbox. I believe a similar letter was sent to all trustees, but if not, I did want to make sure, and I asked it very quickly to be put on the agenda regardless, so that trustees would have an opportunity to discuss virtual meetings and meeting in person. So obviously COVID is still very much a concern out there for a good number of people in our community. And the other piece I would say right now is certainly we have established a bit of a current, even if temporary, practice of having virtual meetings, which does allow our community and trustees flexibility to be able to attend from home. There is benefits. There are also challenges to not being in the same room. I certainly miss being in the room with my colleagues and being able to have people in the room as well to join us and participate. There's a certain energy when you're all in space together that I really do miss. Be that as it may, this letter and other discussions I've had with members of the community, certainly around COVID concerns, but around the appreciation of having virtual meetings, makes me think we should continue them for the time being, at least until the end of the school year. And then perhaps return to a discussion about hybrid models or other models going into the next school year in a way that enables people to participate feasibly from home, but also have us be in space and place together. So that was my intention to bring this here, to provide a bit of an opportunity for trustees to have a conversation about this. There are school districts that are going back in person next month. And there are those who are staying virtual, and many councils in our region, I believe, have either gone back fully in person or are doing hybrid opportunities. So again, providing an opportunity for some discussion. Trustee Duncan, I see your hand, and then I'll go to Trustee Whitaker. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to discuss this. I think it's an important item. My own thoughts on it are that the virtual meetings have been very helpful. I think it has actually increased access for many folks, especially folks who, don't need to worry about childcare because of the flexibility of doing a Zoom meeting. But my particular point really is around our boardroom. And so two things. One, I think for our own board, it's been very beneficial because our audio and video equipment in the boardroom does need a significant upgrade. We've had problems in the past with being able to properly identify speakers when we have needed to provide some flexibility for either a trustee colleague or a stakeholder around the table to provide, for instance, teleconference option. It's been very difficult for both the viewing public to hear that contributor, and also for them to hear the meeting and hear the contributions even within the boardroom. So I think, this is a wonderful, viable, accessible option that would help us to put off what I anticipate will be a very costly upgrade that is needed to our boardroom audio video equipment. But also I think there's sort of like the climate perspective as well, and not having all of us driving into various meetings in the month at the board office. There are also benefits to doing things virtually. And then I guess the last thing I would say is that, I would like to see us review how we include the public in virtual meetings. I think if we're going to continue to run things this way, then it would be helpful, I think, to look at other ways that we could make the virtual environment a little bit more accessible to the public. Because I think that's the main thing that we miss, is having folks able to physically be in the gallery and participating in that way. But I don't think that is insurmountable. I think we can come up with some solutions to increase that accessibility piece.
Thanks, Trustee Duncan. I agree with much of what you've said. So some very good points, especially on the technical feasibility challenge of upgrading a space. That is not lost on anybody, I think. Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of Trustee Duncan's comments. As for me, every time I think about going back to in person, it's that loss of accessibility of the public to actually be able to understand and hear the words that we're saying in our arguments, and even hearing, motions being brought to the floor. If you go back, a couple of years and try and watch some of those videos, it's pretty tough in some places. And I really think that, as much as I think over the last few months, we might have had an extremely full gallery out the door for public meetings. And there is definitely something lost when the public wants to create a very loud voice. But I really think that this is the way to go right now with Zoom. And I have to tell you, at 11 o'clock on a December night, I really appreciate being home.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions from folks? I don't know if staff have any comments to raise. Okay, so we will carry on. Again, this is just an opportunity to say this. My preference is that we maintain for the time being, and then we can reassess come summer and next September.
Do we need a motion to continue, or we can just do that?
It was, yeah, we can just keep doing it. But thank you for wanting to bring us back to that piece. So C, annual work plan, May 2022 is there for your review. Are there any comments or questions on the annual work plan? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, and I actually, sorry, just bear with me while I get to the point in the packet. Sorry. Yeah, so there was a couple of things that I just wanted to clarify. So we had a couple of external compliance and accountability reports that will be completed in the month of May. Certainly the carbon neutral action report is due, and I understand will be posted to the website, as well as there is a plan to receive the energy manager's latest report. I just wanted to confirm whether those reports will also be on the ops agenda or will come right to the board.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Secretary Treasurer Morris. Kim, over to you.
Happy to have the superintendent go first. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Deb.
Yes, I excuse me, as we were meeting with, or had been meeting with the Climate Action Committee, we had talked about the energy manager's report coming, but I don't know that we've determined whether it is at ops or the board. So I'd actually go back to Secretary Treasurer Morris and ask if she knows that.
Our preference would be ops, and the facilities staff has that reminder, but depending on time, we'll do our best to get it to ops, but it may be to the board.
Okay, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, just another one around the capital planning piece. So again, in May, I just wanted to clarify that the capital planning piece will pertain to the 2023-24 school year. Is that correct?
Kim, go ahead.
Yes, that's correct.
Great, thanks. And then, Chair, I technically speaking, I know there wasn't a chair's report, but I did have a couple of questions.
Oh no, please. I mean, we're here, so go ahead.
Sure. I just wondered if you wanted to, if my colleagues wanted to ask questions about this schedule or the board work plan.
Yeah, it's the work plan, so we're good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I know that there is no chair's report this month. Otherwise, I would ask the questions under that. But I wanted to follow up because on a number of occasions now, myself and also my colleague Trustee Whitaker has queried, I guess would be the right way of saying it, the membership of the policy committee. So at the end of November, in December, and then in January again, and then at ops recently, I know that we had asked you to review the policy committee membership because the same two trustees have been assigned going on 3 years now. I assume that your decision is that that the same two trustees will stay as members of the policy committee. And I just wanted to query why new trustees hadn't been assigned to the policy committee this year.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan, for asking that. And you're right, it has been raised. And I will admit with apology to you that it is not something that I have turned my attention to with the immediacy that it has deserved to get back to you on that. And I know it is an important issue that you and Trustee Whitaker have talked about. So it does require a response from me. So I'm going to endeavor to turn my attention to this week so that I can get a response for you together, you and Trustee Whitaker certainly, and for the rest of the board, because they also would probably like to know the rationale for maintaining this as it is. But it is not something I've had a chance to turn my attention to. I do see Jordan has her hand up though, so I'm happy to go to Jordan.
I just want to remind trustees that when the assignments were made in December, that they were presented at a board meeting and there was a discussion at that time. That said, like if the fact that I'm on that committee is a real problem, I'm happy to step back and allow somebody else to be on it. It's not, it's not something I want to have a big, have as, creating tension at the table. So I'll just put that forward. If that's something that somebody is looking for, then I'm happy to, allow the chair to appoint somebody else. I think one of the challenges is that the committee's been working on the same policies for basically 3 years, and we've got quite a few in the pike that have not managed to move forward. So I just know that the dozens and dozens and dozens of hours that have gone into that it could be challenging to get a new committee up to speed when a lot of these, we really have had are ready to go for 2 and 3 years. So if I remember correctly, that was part of the rationale of keeping it steady, because we haven't been able to move forward the work that we've done. But yeah, happy to have further conversation on this.
Thank you, Jordan. You've actually helped to twig my memory on this, because you're right. When I was considering, and Trustee Duncan, I've got your hand for a follow-up, so I'll go to you next. But I recall when putting together assignments for external committees, family of schools, liaisons, contract negotiations, standing committees, external orgs, and external committees, it's always a heady task to try to balance all the committees and the family of schools and the other things that people are doing to provide some desire for folks to shift and experience different things, and then appreciating and understanding that the work that is currently being done by other committees like the School Police Liaison Committee, the Renaming Committee, the Climate Action Committee, which we've just assigned, the Budget Advisory Committee, which was assigned as well. So there's a lot of committee work ongoing, and the rationale, I think, for continuing the current membership partly was based on the ongoing work of previous policies of that committee that has maintained. But I think it was also an attempt to balance as best as I could, obviously not perfect, but as best as I could, the responsibilities of trustees to fill these roles. So just trying to provide some more of that context. Trustee Duncan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I guess I'll let you deliberate, and I don't expect you to provide an answer from the floor. But what I would say is that the work of the policy committee in particular, I think requires that rotation of trustees on an annual basis. I think otherwise what you get is, for no fault of the trustees who are members, this is not about blame or about pointing fingers. This is about pointing out that if you don't have that annual rotation and an opportunity for new trustees to participate in formulating policy for our board, then what you create is really undue influence in a very, very important part of the work of the board. And also, if you don't give other trustee colleagues an opportunity to provide insights and to contribute to the work of that committee, it is some of the more contentious work that our board does. And we've seen that. We've seen that in conversations we've had at standing committees around how to develop policy. We've seen that when we've had concerns raised by ourselves and by other colleagues and by some of our stakeholders about how we're developing policy in our district. So I think for those reasons, I certainly was hoping to see the committee rotate and just to have a fresh perspective, another 2 trustees to take up the mantle. And I expect that whoever is assigned to a committee will have to play catch up and see where the work is at and see how they can pick up and take forward that work. But I think that's a healthy thing. And I think that in this case, in particular around the work of this committee, I think it's a necessary thing in terms of continuing to build trust around the board table, but also with our stakeholders.
Thanks, Trustee Duncan. And I do appreciate the space to provide me to deliberate on this. I'm going to take one more input because I do want to go through the agenda. So I'm going to go to Elaine and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, so as the other person on the policy committee, we have a lot of things, as Trustee Waters said, in the hopper ready to move forward, but it's a very slow process to move it forward. I think that if the chair wanted to look at starting 2 more trustees on other policies that are not already formulated and ready to come to the board, that would be a way to start rotating Jordan and I out of the position, because I don't think that we want to be there for a lifetime either. So, but we have so many things ready to go and in the queue to come to ops that to take over that work doesn't make any sense. But if the chair wanted to appoint and find 2 more trustees who wanted to do the overlap and they could start on other things that are coming down the pike, I think that would be a way to transition us out and move the other 2 people forward. So that would be my suggestion if the chair wanted to contemplate something along that line.
I really appreciate the deliberations on this, trustee colleagues. I think it's an important conversation, and I appreciate what everyone has brought to the table, and certainly the suggestions, especially from Trustee Duncan and Elaine, are very good. And Jordan, I appreciate the work that I know you've put into a lot of these policies too. And Elaine, I know you've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort on these, so I really, really appreciate it. Trustee Duncan, I did want to move on. Is there a point on this you wanted to raise?
It was on this, actually. It wasn't actually on this, but it was related to chair's report. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Not on
Keep
this,
going.
though.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wondered, so as there's no written report, I wonder if there was a couple of things that I just caught by email. I know that you've been busy as chair this month, and I just wondered if you could highlight for us some of the activities that you've done this month, visits, any meetings and outcomes in your capacity as chair that you could share with the board.
I'm not necessarily prepared to think on this at this point, Trustee Duncan. I mean, I have, I just came back from BCSTA AGM over the weekend, which was very eventful, very good weekend. I have had the opportunity to tour Willows. I've had the opportunity to tour Monterey. I had an opportunity to participate in the, I'm going to get the name of it wrong, and the District Pathways and Partnerships team will not be happy if I get it wrong. The trade show that happened up at Reynolds, which was a fantastic trade show. I got to meet a lot of local trades, individuals who had various and sundry different tables set up with electronics, with one of them was the group that is currently, and their name has skipped my mind, but the group that is currently doing the town line downtown of Victoria that's blasting all the rock. And there's a significant amount of it. And there was a virtual reality simulator as well, which I did not get to try, but did have a very long lineup. So it was, yeah, so that's some of the stuff that I have been doing, but certainly there's lots. And yep, just you know, the factor of being extraordinarily busy and doing a lot, and I know as other trustees have other full-time work as well, has made it challenging to put together chair's reports, but I'm always happy to try to answer questions to the best of my ability. So thank you for asking. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just also noting that I have also seen a couple of things go by on the email, and I noted that when the band students were at the board office, that you commented that you did engage with them and talk to them, and I haven't heard anything about I wasn't at the event, and I'm just wondering, so what were the conversations with students? What are the salient points that the board should hear on that?
Don't recall if I said I spoke with them. Maybe I did. It feels like it forever ago. So when the band protest most recently came to the board office, I had stopped, just happened to be coming to do some board chair signing. I talked with a couple students at the end of the group who were watching. Much of their comments trustees will be aware of. They wanted information about cutting strings and the cutting of middle school strings and band. I provided some of my own responses to them and then went inside, did my work that I was there to do, came back out. There was a drum line at the door. I waited for them to pass forward and then I followed them out the door. Jordan, go ahead.
If I can just follow up on that.
I'm going to Jordan next. I'm going to Jordan next.
It's very polite. Because I don't
Trustee
know.
Whitaker, I am going to Jordan next. Then I will come back to you. Thank you very much.
So I'm a little concerned about how we're doing this in terms of process. So, we're all equals around the table. I'm wondering if everyone who's so curious about what Ryan's conversations are like, are they also going to share? Because I haven't seen any other trustees bringing forward accountings of what they're doing or their discussions. I think one of the policies that we were asked to do many, many moons ago was around trustee reports and how these should be coming forward. So to me, I think we are like an eighth of the way into a very complex agenda, and it's 8:45, and I personally don't want to be making really important decisions at 11 o'clock at night. So I hope that we can move on. The chair didn't have a report tonight, so there is no report to comment on. It just always feels like a bit of an inquisition here, and I just wish we could focus a little more on what is on the agenda, because there's a lot there.
Thank you, Jordan. And I will take one more question from Trustee Whitaker because she had her hand up. But Trustee Whitaker, I
don't have a question.
Okay,
I don't have a question. What I would like to say is, and your comment was that you believe that all trustees knew what students were saying, but I don't. So maybe going forward,
Trustee Whitaker,
can I
I am not going to elaborate on the fulsome, engaging,
I get that, and I'm
conversations I've had with students. I know you have had them, and I have had them, and I know all trustees have had them. I'm going to move on. D, Board Committee Reports, Education Policy and Directions Committee. Draft minutes from the April 4th, 2022 meeting are for information only. We have a recommended motion from April 4th, 2022 on industry-sponsored education materials. The recommended motion reads as follows: that the Board of Education of School District Number 61 direct the interim superintendent to meet with members of the Greater Victoria Teachers Association to discuss the appropriate use of fossil fuel industry-sponsored educational materials, including those provided by Fortis BC in the Greater Victoria School District. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. Discussion on this motion, please. Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I just wonder of the need to pass this motion, because the GVTA did pass a motion at their last staff reps meetings to not use this material. And I also question that the superintendent would need our direction to do that. But anyway, I think that, the GVTA is on it as well. They're also very concerned about this, and they've already passed a motion to not use this in their curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Jordan and then Elaine.
Personally, I would feel really good to have our board on record having concern with this particular issue and initiating a process that ensures that there will be some accountability around how we follow through with this. So I agree, everybody's on it. So I think it'll be great for us also to show that we are on it as well.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, really quickly, I'm in favor of this motion. I think it'll be a really short conversation based on what's been said around the table. But I also think that then it will be in the minutes when the superintendent reports back to us about what the very short conversation was.
Thank you. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I don't, I guess I agree with Trustee Whitaker on this one. I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think that it's necessary to direct the superintendent to do what superintendents do, which is to converse with our stakeholders, in particular around learning resources in the classroom. We've got a regulation that outlines a standard and that makes it very clear that biased materials or materials that include propaganda should not be used as learning resources in the classroom. And it is the job of the superintendent to uphold our policies and regulations. And I trust our superintendent to do that. But what I would say is that, you know, the GVTA has shown, you know, leadership in you know, voting to not use these materials. And so I think it's good that we're acknowledging that, and that is the key point. And so if they're not using the materials, then clearly there is not an issue. But if my colleagues feel that there is a need to pass the motion on the floor tonight regardless, then what I would expect is that we amend a motion to include reporting back in the process. So including at the end a direction that the superintendent will report back to the board in May 2022 at the board meeting.
Okay, so Trustee Duncan, just so I understand the amendment, is that adding the report back piece to after the final Greater Victoria School District? Is that, or did you have another place you wanted to add that?
Yeah, so what we could say is further, the superintendent will report back to the board at the May 2022 board meeting.
Okay, there is an amendment proposed. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment, for lack of a seconder, fails. So we'll go back to the main motion.
I would like to make an amendment. I'm sorry,
Okay.
just trying to get it. And maybe people can help. For me, I think that the conversation that the superintendent should be having with the GVTA is around our policy around sponsored materials being used in the classroom before being vetted. And so I'm not sure if that motion is moving beyond this and is no longer germane, but I really think that's the root of the problem. I really struggle when we do a one-off, like we're doing this to deal with Fortis. I would much rather that we looked at the policy that allowed this to happen and ensure that it doesn't happen with a different company or with a different topic. So I don't know if I need to rewrite this or if.
So Trustee Whitaker, if I can, because we specifically talk about the use of fossil fuel industry sponsored education materials, I think if you had something that wanted to apply a bit more broadly, it would be germane. So I'd be interested in the amendment if you had one.
Okay, so let me go. So if we go, members to meet with the Greater Victoria Teachers Association to discuss the appropriate use of sponsored educational materials prior to unless vetted in the Greater Victoria School District.
So that, sorry, that would not be germane because you've removed fossil fuel. So this is a specific fossil fuel motion. So it needs to be maintained in the amendment.
I'll just bring forward another motion that addresses that, because I think this is going to happen again, whether it's fossil fuel or it's plastic or it's Coca-Cola.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, man. I don't disagree. I think it's a valid point. Any other discussion? Trustee Duncan, you've spoken once, I think. Was this a question or a follow-up?
Just a point of clarification.
Sure.
There is a regulation, and I've referenced it, but I didn't use the number, so maybe using the number would be more helpful to my colleagues. But so regulation 61.1 at section 2 or sets out a criteria for selection of learning resources and textbooks. And it specifically speaks to bias propaganda in those resources and avoiding that. And it also, I think, quite helpfully speaks to the possibility that some biased material might be used as a foil, if you will, to teach critical thinking skills, for instance. And so, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we actually do have a regulation that speaks to that.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. I'm going to call the question on this motion. I feel like we have discussed it a good length here, and I'm not seeing any hands. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify. And those opposed and abstentions. So the motion passes with Trustee Elaine Leonard opposed and Trustee Whitaker and Trustee Duncan abstaining, and the balance in favor. Thank you, trustees. So Operations, Policy and Planning Committee, draft minutes from the April 11th, 2022 meeting are for information only. And we have no motions coming from that report. So we'll go to the district leadership team reports. Interim Superintendent.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter. You will see on page 73 my report outlining the activities that I've participated in this week or this month. I think just to draw your attention to the gratitude at the bottom, I would like to thank the Budget Advisory Committee, which includes Secretary Treasurer Kim Morris, as well as the Associate Secretary Treasurer Katrina Stride, and the Financial Department for their hard work in successfully completing the 22-23 budget. Also, I draw your attention to Dr. Shelley Nemi, who contributed to an article, and the link is there should you wish to see the article. Fantastic, around Indigenous leadership as a ceremony, which was in the spring 2022 issue. And again, as we noticed and we're able to celebrate this evening, the UFIA's TOR, and many thanks to the writing team for bringing that forward and for all of their contributions as a very meaningful and important document for the district. So that is my report for the month.
Thank you, Superintendent. And we have a motion that the Board of Education of the School District 61 Greater Victoria receive the interim superintendent's report as presented. Moved by Tom. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. Thank you. Any discussion on the monthly report? Seeing and hearing none. Oh, sorry, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. I actually tried to open the article that Dr. Nemi contributed to, and I was not able to. I wonder if someone could resend the link. I'm not sure why it didn't open, but I'm eager to read that. And then I just also wondered through the chair to the interim superintendent, if you could expand a little bit on the Island Health Shoreline Wellness Hub. I'm very interested to hear what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Through the chair. We met members of the Island Health Committee as well as district principal to discuss or give updates with regards to the Shoreline Wellness Hub that has been in operation for now, I believe, 4 or 5 years. And so we reflected back to the purpose and the intention of that wellness hub, and who we had thought we would serve or help to serve and remove barriers to access, that there are many positive things that are occurring there. And in fact, hoping to, if we're able to expand into another school, to look at sort of taking our learnings from that and bringing it forward to another school. So we did speak about the resources that are available there, the access for families and students, and then how it has expanded, and how we would bring that into either into an elementary school or into a middle school in a different part of the city. So they're very pleased with how this has come about, and the school as well is pleased. And as a district, I think we should be very proud. It is the only that I'm aware of that is at a middle school. So other wellness hubs have been at secondary, but none have been at middle. So this is something that is different in the province.
Great to hear. That's exciting. Look forward to hearing more about how that develops. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous, not opposed. We'll go to the school calendar 2022-2023. We have the calendar in front of us. Can I dispense with reading? I think we're good. Okay. Can I have a mover?
Academy fees? I'm sorry, you jumped. Or am I?
Nope. B is 2022, 2023.
Okay,
school
sorry,
calendar.
sorry, never mind.
Nope, that's okay. That's what the wave was for. Sorry, I thought that was waving me on. Can I be, trustees, we're okay to dispense with reading? Sorry, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Can I have a mover for this motion, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Any discussion on the calendar? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the calendar. All those in favor of approval? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Now we're going to academy fees. 2022, 2023 specialty academy fees. The motion is that the Board of Education of School District 61, Greater Victoria, makes available to the public via the district website the schedules of fees that have been approved by the Parents Advisory Council for the school where the board proposes to offer specialty academy fees. Before we go here, I'm assuming there is perhaps a staff discussion item that they want before we move the motion, or does staff want us to just jump into the motion right away? Yeah, okay. So moved by Jordan, second Elaine, thank you. Is there any discussion? Ooh. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing. Oh, sorry, Jordan, go ahead. There was a loud thump above me and that kind of worried me. Sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
I just wonder if just to provide some context for the public, if just very briefly, we could hear from the superintendent around what the academies are, essentially. I just know we've been talking about budgeting and programming. I'm not looking for a huge report or anything, but just this item can seem kind of mysterious, I think, to people out there. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to get like a succinct summary of what we're doing here.
Okay, interim superintendent.
Sure, thank you. I can begin and then I can pass it over to Deputy Superintendent if I haven't fulfilled all of the questions. So we have academies throughout our secondary schools that are programs of choice, and they do come with a fee for parents. Many of the academies have classes attached to them, so they may be a physical education class, which generates funding through the course, but there are also coaches that are associated with the academies, and therefore there are costs and fees. And so this is at no cost to the district that we run these academies, and therefore on an annual basis we bring forward the fees to be approved as per the motion. So you can see in the memo, page 74, that there are rugby academy, a baseball and softball academy, as well as soccer and hockey skills academy. And those are the academies that we have currently offered in secondary school.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Trustee questions. I have one through the superintendent. Some conversations and an email I received, and I just want to go to it for reference around YFCs and specifically with current YFC deployment or renewal with regards to George J. I'm wondering if we can get an update on that. I've had a couple questions from the public, and I think there would be some interest in getting a bit of an update on our status there. If you could, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Painter. I will begin and then pass it over to Associate Superintendent Harold Caldwell as he looks after the Community Link budget. But this does pertain to the Community Link budget and funds that had been allocated to schools. Funds change year to year based on the ratios and funding mechanisms. Having said that, principals in their schools make decisions based on the information that they have, both by the student population they currently see and the ones they expect to see in the following year. And they make staffing allocations based on the Community Link funds that they receive. So Mr. Caldwell can speak more about the decision at the specific school that you named, and then just in general how principals do make decisions with the funds they receive through Community Link.
Through the chair, the funds were allocated, distributed to George J. And again, as Interim Superintendent Deb Whitten has mentioned, the principals have the authority to use those funds in any manner they see fit within their building, which best serves their population. So those monies have been applied, and the principal at the school has allocated those funds into the areas, including a youth and family counselor. So they maintain a youth and family counselor. They've also included a full-time social emotional learning teacher, and they've used the funds to also top up the school-based counselor as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation on that. Interim Superintendent Whitten and Associate Superintendent Caldwell, thank you. Any other trustee questions this evening? I've got Angie and then Trustee Whitaker. Angie, you go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the judicial review, and I know that it was delayed due to illness, and I'm wondering if we have if new dates have been set for that.
I can respond. I have a very loose response from council that it may be rescheduled for the beginning of May, but I don't have confirmation yet. I continue to try to get confirmation because of how the assize system works in court. It means that you essentially have to wait until you're told that you're going to court. So there are efforts to try, my understanding, to get to court at the beginning of May, but I don't have any confirmations on the final definitive date. And once I have those, I'll let trustees know, but I don't have that information at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I actually have two questions and a comment. So one, just because one came up, one, I would like to know if it's possible. I understand that the superintendent will be meeting with the students around music. I would just like if somebody could give the trustees some sort of a report of what it is that they are asking for and saying, because I've heard that they're saying something and some trustees seem to have a full understanding of what that is, but I don't. So if it's possible to get that, so it's not really a trustee question, but this seems to be the only place to ask that. If that's possible. Anyway, and my other question is around the CRD grants that are out for reducing waste. I know we have a motion to create a waste policy committee, and that sort of is up in the air, but I know that these funds are for initiatives to reduce waste. They are open to our parent advisory councils. They're open to the K-12 sector. They're open to any innovative ideas to reduce the amount of waste going to the landfill. So I guess I'm wondering if we will be, or if the Climate Action Committee will be looking at that and seeing if there's any way that we can perhaps get ourselves one of those grants. And you don't have to answer that right away, but maybe that can be a follow-up if we are able to put that on our radar as a possible way to start some of those initiatives. And it's unfortunate we haven't had those conversations, but and then my last one was about the policy around the materials for teachers, but I think we can answer that. So maybe I'm just putting out questions that I'm hoping to get follow-up information on. But I thought that they were important comments to make right now, especially with Earth Day and the waste policy. I know I keep trying to get us to move in that direction. I do feel like it's a very hard hill to climb, but there just keeps being more opportunities. And I also think that we should be proactive in this because I believe the fees that are going to continue to come onto waste are going to be a huge impact on our budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other trustee questions? Seeing and hearing none, we can go to the Secretary Treasurer's report, E2 monthly report. Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you.
Thank you. My report is there for information, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions to the Secretary Treasurer on her report? If there are none, can I have a mover to receive the Secretary Treasurer's report? Moved by Trustee Whitaker, seconded by Tom. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor? And that is, opposed. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. Capital Bylaw number 2022-23, and then some letters and lots of other stuff. So I don't feel like reading it out. Secretary Treasurer Morris, over to you. Capital Bylaw for you.
Sure.
For us.
So this is a capital plan response letter. So last June 2021, the board approved its capital plan submission to the ministry for the 22-23 school year. The letter attached in your packet is the ministry's response letter to that 22-23 capital plan. And you can see that the district has been approved for Sundance Elementary seismic project, or that it has advanced to the PDR stage. And so that's good news. We're moving along the trajectory of having a seismic project approved at Sundance. You'll note that Shoreline Community Middle School has been not delayed, but put aside for a year in order for staff and the four houses, or the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, to pick up discussions around that particular seismic project again. And then in terms of some of the more minor projects, we have Lambert Park Secondary, new siding, windows and doors in an old portion of the school. Victoria High SEP exterior wall systems is a windows project that will enhance the seismic upgrade that we are receiving. At Spectrum Community School, the CNCP energy upgrade is to provide some decentralized controls for heating. And we are approved for a universally accessible playground at Macaulay Elementary School. And so looking for 3 readings of this bylaw tonight, if possible. This is simply approving the ministry's response letter and giving me the authority to sign the funding agreement so that we can receive the money and get on with the projects.
Trustees, we have, before we go into debate and discussion, we do have a motion. Can I get dispense with reading? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Jordan moved, Trustee Whitaker seconded. That's for first and second reading. Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions through the chair of the Secretary Treasurer. One, around the motion itself, it references the letter from the ministry as being dated April 25th. If it's the letter in the packet, I believe it's dated the 15th of March, but I just wanted to confirm that that is the letter that we intended to reference in the motion.
I will just double check the packet.
Okay. Page 82 is where the motion is.
That date should read March 15th, 2022.
I suppose that could just be a friendly amendment. And then I just had a question as well.
Go
If
ahead.
I may, through the chair. So the approval for the Lambert Park Secondary building envelope upgrades, there is no amount, and it references BC Housing will contact the district regarding next steps in project development. I wonder if I can get some clarification on what BC Housing's involvement is in building envelope upgrades at Lambert Park Secondary.
Okay, sorry, is that for me?
Yes, I believe
Okay,
so.
I would call on either Chuck or Marnie to answer that question.
Pardon me, through the chair. BC Housing typically responds to all of the building envelope work that the ministry approves. So they have their own process. They involve us once they have some of that process beginning to move, and then we go over a lot of the information that they present to us, so to make sure that we're fully understanding, aware of what is on the scope.
Okay, Trustee Duncan, follow up, go ahead.
Yeah, please. So I just wanted to clarify. So BC Housing's involved as a funder, or as in some kind of approval capacity. I guess I'm just, and again, excuse my ignorance, I'm not sure. My understanding of BC Housing's mandate is, I guess maybe that's where I'm a little unclear. I'm not sure what role they play in capital infrastructure maintenance, repair, and upgrade for a school district. So maybe it's just an education piece that I'm looking for.
That maybe through the Secretary Treasurer or Director Morris, either or can take that.
Yeah, I think we can probably bring something back on that, Trustee Duncan.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the capital bylaw? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on the first two readings of the bylaw. All those in favor? And Jordan? There we go. We are unanimous. Trustees, we're now going to go to the option to give third reading this evening. Can I have a mover? Moved by Tom, seconded by Jordan. Any discussion on giving third reading to the capital bylaw this evening? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. Before I decide how I want to vote on third reading, I just had one more question around the shoreline seismic project. I wanted to clarify whether or not Songhees Nation and Esquimalt Nation have received the previous consultation documents that they requested in March 2021. They were looking in particular for a consultation that I believe was undertaken by the previous board. And so I'm just wanting to know whether they have, if we have provided them with those, with that consultation information to support the conversations that need to occur in order to move this project forward and get it back on track.
Sure, thanks. Trustee Duncan, I will go to the interim superintendent, Deb Whitten, or Secretary Treasurer Morris, either or. I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
To date, I have not located those records. It's been difficult to find any notes on that. I'm not sure if the interim superintendent has any update on that either.
Yes, I have spent some time looking. I do have a timeline, but I do not have written notes on the discussions that occurred.
Okay, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, just a brief follow-up, if I may, Chair, to whoever can answer the question. I just wonder, did the previous board receive an engagement report, for instance? I know that certainly is our practice, or any public-facing documents during the course of the consultation, invitations to attend consultation meetings and the like, or we're saying we can't locate any of that.
Interim Superintendent Whitten.
I do have information with regards to invitations and dates, but I do not have a written report or a final document that I've been able to find.
Sorry, if I may, Chair. Just
Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Thank you. So is the plan, I guess, if we're not able to provide the information that's been requested last year, is the plan to follow up and reply in writing to say as much? I'm just minded that this was sort of a point that was left lingering, and that I think is a key piece to help us to move forward and to start to get the project back on track and really give our the rights holders information that they have asked for, so that we can all come to the table and get this project moving in the right direction. So just wondered what the plan is then if we can't find the information that's been requested.
Interim Superintendent Whitten.
I do have an upcoming meeting with Chief and Council but we have not discussed a plan from this area with regards to how we will articulate out what documents we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? I'm just rolling back here. So if there's no further questions on the capital bylaw third reading, so in order to give third reading tonight, we must carry this motion unanimously. If not, third reading will come back at the next board meeting. Seeing no further questions, I will call the question on third reading, giving third reading tonight. All those in favor? And opposed? And not opposed, so that carries unanimously, and we can give third reading. Can I have a motion to move third reading and finally pass and adopt the 25th day of April 2022? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Elaine. Any discussion on third reading? Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, so I just want to pick up on the last theme. I guess really from my perspective, I just hope that we can, you know, if in fact we are not able to locate these records, then, you know, I certainly hope that we'll make it a priority to communicate that and to get the conversations started that are necessary in order to get this project moving. I really don't want to see it slide off the agenda any more than it has. It's a really high priority from a capital perspective, and it affects a lot of our students. And I'm certainly aware that this particular project has been contemplated for many years. Yeah, I just really feel that I needed to vocalize that because it's been a concern of mine for a few years now. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thanks, Trustee Duncan. To the interim superintendent, there was some previous consultation done on this prior to last year, was there not? I seem to recall 2020, I think.
Yes, and I believe the communications and engagement manager has that information. So yes, she can provide that to us.
Okay, thank you for that. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, so we consulted regarding the amalgamation of Craigflower and Shoreline in January 2023. And then we paused the process to ensure that all stakeholders and rights holders were at the table. However, we do have the survey results from that consultation, and we do have the data and the emails collected from that engagement process. But because it was paused, we never formally presented a summary engagement report. In fact, I was writing the conclusion and we paused the process. So that wasn't brought forward. In reference, Nicole, to previous conversations, I believe that precedes my time here at the district. I have myself tried locating some of those files, meeting minutes that you mentioned, but I have not been fortunate to find them. Apologies.
That's okay. Thanks, Lisa, for your work to try to do that. And it's good to know that we have the previous consultation pieces and your good work there. So thank you. Any other comments or questions on third reading? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on adopting third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. Carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Question period. So there's one question submitted by Jonathan Farber. It is the same question that was noted above, where there was no answer, or the answer was a duplicate of what was presented in the minutes. So we're going to update that, and that will be provided in the updated minutes for the meeting minutes when they are updated. So the answer will be provided, and that will be updated at that time. No other questions, so we'll go to public disclosure of in-camera items. We have record of in-camera board meeting March 14th, record of special in-camera board meeting March 15th, record of special in-camera board meeting April 12th, record of special in-camera board meeting April 20th. New business and notice of motions. We'll go to H1, Trustee Waters, reinvigorate the Greater Victoria Foundation for Learning. Motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 reinvigorate the Greater Victoria Foundation for Learning. Can I have a mover, please?
I can move
Moved
it.
Moved by Jordan, seconded by Angie. Jordan, you can motivate. Go ahead.
So, and I'm probably not the best person to speak to the history of the foundation, although that person is at our table, Trustee Leonard. But this is a foundation, which is like an arm's reach body of the board that has a set of bylaws and has the ability to appoint a board with community members on it. And act as a fundraising wing for the board. It's been very controversial over the time because should we be using, should public education have to be, a charity in order to be able to fund programming? I mean, that's a pretty uncomfortable place to sit. But as there's been so much conversation around donations and all of that directing, private funds into the public system, then one way to do that is certainly through the Greater Victoria Foundation for Learning, where there could be a board of interested community folks who could drive that. And I know in other districts, it operates where they'll run a golf tournament or have a symphony evening or do fundraising, as well as collecting donations in other ways, and that can be a boon to the board. For me, I think if we are going to be looking at soliciting funds, then I would feel a lot more comfortable with it being overseen by a sort of a third party body. As the board, we are managing our budget and have our governance processes in place that are somewhat rigid in a way, whereas the foundation could do things, bring in more people from the community with their energy and their ideas, and do things more creatively. So in terms of reinvigorate, the foundation is a nonprofit and it files its papers each year like nonprofits are required to do, but it's not currently active in that I think it only has one director. So in terms of reinvigorating, that would be what I'm imagining is that it's looking at those bylaws and making a plan to bring forward to the board around getting it going again. How would you appoint members, answering all of those questions. So the chair may have to, appoint trustees, and I'm sure a staff member would likely need to be involved. But the idea is that it, as a fundraising body, could work separately from the board. So this is one of the tools in our toolbox. So I just wanted to bring it forward so that we have the opportunity to discuss whether this is a road that we want to go down, raising funds as a charitable organization. And if so, if this is the way that we want to do it, or if we'd rather go ad hoc by board motion. And yeah, so thank you. I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Jordan. Angie, as the seconder, I can let you motivate if you'd like, or I can go to Trustee Whitaker. I've got your hand, Trustee Whitaker. I'll go to you next.
No, I have nothing to add beyond what Jordan said.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you, and thank you, Trustee Waters, for bringing this forward. But this isn't the first time that this motion has come before us or in the last while. So in June 2017, the superintendent at the time was asked to do a review, which was done. And then in November of 2017, literally the same motion with the addition of revising the bylaws was brought forward to the board. And that was then moved to a motion being passed that the board would look at revising the bylaws and that they would come back in October. Generally what happened is then in October of 2018, it was like a 2-year process. It was moved to December's ops meeting. And in that meeting from Secretary Treasurer Mark Walsh at the time, it was noted that upon review of the progression towards the reinvigoration of the foundation, it has become apparent that the board has not had the opportunity to engage in a fulsome review of the intended purposes of the foundation or the potential organizational structures for the foundation, including the associated impact on district resources. And at the time, 3 potential recommendations that the board could consider were put before the board, and none of them were taken up, and it fell from the floor. So I agree that this is a discussion that needs to happen, and I think that this report and these recommendations should be reviewed. So I would like to table this motion to Ed Policy or Ops so that we can actually take a look at the previous work that has been done and have a fulsome discussion. I don't think that we can make that decision now any more than we could have made the decision then in December of 2018.
We have a motion to table. Trustee Whitaker, do you think Ops or Ed Paul is the best? I'm open to either.
Do you know what? I'm more about what's the length on each agenda? Where do you have room to put it?
Sure. Well, we're doing our Ed Policy agenda review tomorrow. So if it fits there, we can put it there, and I think we'll be amenable to that. We can always have in the motion to either Ed Policy or Ops, and that gives us some flexibility. So sorry, I have a motion to table on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Duncan. Okay. Jordan, go ahead.
Sure, I'll support the motion to move it forward. Just with the one, just to note that we would still need to undertake the actions. 5 years is a long time. None of the same staff are here. Much of the board has changed, and I think the reason, my recall of the reasons why none of those motions were picked up off the floor is that there wasn't a majority of trustees who wanted to be operating, who wanted to be accepting private donations. And that was the real rub there. And so to me, there's a foundational question that we need to answer as a board, I think, before you go into doing all of that work is, do we want to be going after private donations? And if we do, then do we want to go in this way? Do you know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, it was an ideological decision. And I think while I'm happy to move it forward to committee for us to have a greater discussion, freer flowing discussion, I think at the end of the day, we have to make an ideological decision around whether we think it's worthwhile to put our energy into fundraising.
Okay, I saw Secretary Treasurer Morris with her hand up. Kim? And then Elaine.
I was just going to selfishly ask that you make it the Ops Committee meeting so that we have some time. Otherwise, the agendas due this week.
Sure. Ops, done.
Thank you.
Friendly amendment. Elaine, over to you.
I was going to selfishly wanted to Ed Policy. So,
sorry, Elaine, you lost that vote.
I know, I did. I didn't get to speak first. That's not what I was going to say. So originally, Tom and I were in this. Started this 20-something years ago, I believe, is when it first came up. And and I tried to have a conversation with Tom to remember, but I believe that it was never to. Okay, I'll back up. It comes forward when we have a funding crisis of some form. And that's why it's being brought up tonight. It was never envisioned to replace staffing costs. That was never the role of the foundation. It was to be arm's length so the board couldn't use it for funding for staffing. And so that is primarily why it never got off the ground, because what is the project going to be? Is it going to be an early literacy? Is it going to be to buy instruments? Is it a one-time thing? But it was so that the board would have access to a fund, but not for staffing purposes. The Greater Victoria School District can issue tax receipts. So that was never the issue about whether or not you'd have this to issue the tax receipts, because the school district can issue tax receipts. So when you're having this discussion at Ed Policy or Ops, we need to understand, because it's a huge rigmarole to set up this foundation. It was months and months and months of paperwork to set it up originally. to go through the rigmarole of getting it set up. So that's why we've kept it active all these years. So we would never have to go through the rigmarole of setting it up again. But you have to really realize that it's not meant to fund the staffing of the district, because it is so tenuous as to how much money will come in, how much money is going out. It should not be for ongoing staffing. So that's just my little, it can be tabled and it can be discussed again, but I think people need to understand that.
Okay, I've got Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I just wonder if I can ask a question of Trustee Leonard or Trustee Ferris. My understanding of way back when the foundation, and maybe it's just a rumor, that it was originally started back when we first started doing reaching out internationally with education, and the thought was to be able to package and sell some of our curriculum to other countries, and it was to be used as something as a vehicle to do that work. Is that rumor have any value, or do you know anything about that?
We'll let Tom speak first. I have no recollection of that.
No, I mean, there were conversations of that sort, but they weren't linked to the foundation. I think the idea of the foundation would be, or was, as it was intended, was that you fund not staffing, as Elaine has pointed out, and also that you could fund programming, but it would be programming that would be outside the timetable. So for example, maybe a summer camp for literacy or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, is that?
Yeah, no, thank you. It just, you know, as we have this conversation coming forward, I just always find that the history and then the rumors are just having clarification so helpful. So thanks, Tom.
Thank you, everybody. Any further comments on the motion to refer to ops? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of referring the Reinvigorate Foundation for Learning motion to ops? Those opposed? Abstentions? So we have Trustee Leonard opposed, Trustee Ryan Painter abstained, and the balance in favor. So the motion is referred to ops. We'll now go to Trustee Waters' second motion, letter to Minister of Education regarding 2022-2023 funding and budget constraints. The motion reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the chair to write a letter to the Minister of Education regarding the 2022-2023 funding and budget constraints. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Jordan. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Tom. Jordan, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. So this is a motion where I think we as a board all want to advocate for increased funding to public education and to share with the ministry the challenges we have faced with this budget cycle and the difficult decisions that we have had to make and how that has impacted our community, and you know, join our community members and amplify their voices to the ministry. So I'm hoping that we can come together on this, you know, very simple action of advocacy. I know our chair can write a beautiful and powerful letter that, you know, can hopefully really tug at some heartstrings and bring forward some, you know, really hard truths around how the ministry's funding model is not keeping up with the needs of our students, the expectations of our community, or really inflation, inflationary pressures, you know, let alone, you know, all those very difficult decisions that we have to make and how that impacted our staff and our community.
Thanks, Jordan. Tom, as the seconder, you can motivate if you'd like.
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Final motion from Trustee Duncan. Let me just roll to it. Oh dear. Oh, there it is. All right, the motion reads that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the superintendent to communicate with Amos Advocacy for Music in Schools, Victoria, who will secure donations to fund the full elementary strings program in the amount of $208,817 required for the 2022-2023 school year. Further, that the Board of Education of School District 61 provide a signed letter to all donors guaranteeing that all funds donated for the specific purpose of funding elementary strings for the 2022-2023 school year be used for the elementary strings program only. The superintendent will report back at the May 2022 Board of Education meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Trustee Duncan. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Trustee Duncan, you may motivate, and then I'll go to Trustee Whitaker after.
Yeah, so I suppose what I would start with is that after our board, special budget board meetings earlier in the month, it became clear that we were not going to allocate the 40,000 plus or support that motion. Since then, I know that colleagues expressed some concerns around the fact that the foundation in the previous motion was not named. And, we've got a really enthusiastic, passionate music community. There is very serious momentum here, and certainly the ability to raise these funds to allow us to continue with the elementary strings program for this coming school year. It does give us some breathing space to evaluate how these sorts of programs can be provided in the future, and to assess how we can fund the programs in the future. There's certainly an important opportunity here that I hope that my colleagues on the board will support. There's no obligation if the funding is not forthcoming, but there is a commitment on the part of the board to use the funding for the purpose of elementary strings for the coming school year. I know I'm minded that when we have received private donations, for instance, at B10 of our agenda, there was a letter from the Secretary Treasurer to Bays United outlining the receipt of 50,000 in funding for the purposes of building an artificial turf soccer field at Vic High. And certain assurances were provided that that money would be used for that purpose, and the money is being kept in trust and will be returned to Bays United within 30 days if that is not going to go forward. So I think it's reasonable to put some kind of assurances that donations received in the amount needed to run the program next year will be used for that purpose. And I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for us for one school year to be able to run the program, to not lose all of the good work and the momentum that has been we've benefited from so many years of the program running, simply because we haven't had the opportunity to conduct a program review and really assess how we could provide the program certainly in a cost-effective way and increase accessibility moving forward.
Thank you. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to amend the motion.
Okay.
So do you want to do other things before I do that, or?
You're certainly welcome to amend. I wonder if you may be interested in hearing other colleagues' comments before, but it's up to you. You can amend if you'd like.
Well, that's why I'm kind of saying I'm still amending, but maybe
Sure.
come back to me next.
Okay. Yeah. Jordan, go ahead.
Thanks. I was really interested to see this motion come in, although it did come in at 7:33 p.m. this evening. So I really haven't had a chance to review the donations to schools, policy and regulations, and there is no memo. So I'm continuing to be curious about what the plan is. The motion says that Amos will deliver the funds, which is amazing that that's set up and ready to go. And then I'm just a little concerned about our, although I fully appreciate and understand the commitment that Amos is looking for around the funds being used in a very specific and targeted way. But what that would look like, and I'm sure our staff needs some time to prepare for that. So I'd like to move that we refer this to Ed Policy, which is next week. Which would give us all a little bit of time to be able to hopefully pull together a memo that has some information about what the plan is, and for staff to have a look. And then for me personally, just to be able to do my due diligence with policy 3451, and the accompanying regulations. I don't know if I have a seconder, but that would be my preferred way to move forward.
The motion is to refer to Ed Policy. I just want to see if we've got a seconder for that. We've got, Angie is seconded. Okay. Discussion on the motion to refer to Ed Policy. Trustee Whitaker.
So I would like to refer most of it to Ed Policy, but I think that there is the piece of meeting with the superintendent in order to be able to come to Ed Policy with some really good pieces. So, and maybe just hear me out, because I know you do have a motion, but my thought was that if we could amend, part of it and do part and then do the other part. My thought is to amend that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the superintendent to communicate with the advocacy from unison schools in regards to the possibility to fund the full elementary streams program, and then hold it there, and then all of the rest go to Ed Policy, because I think that if the superintendent could meet with the advocacy committee for music, then I think we would be able to have a better discussion about what they're talking about, what the issues of the district are, and what that could look like, so that that discussion could happen. So I guess, fine to move it, but I do think, or else put forward another motion after that. So if you want to move this one and then maybe put on the table another motion so that the superintendent has that opportunity. I just think we're going to need that information.
Yeah. Sure. So just logistically, so folks watching can understand, technically we can't amend a motion that is currently sitting waiting to be referred. But what is being recommended is that if we do refer this motion in whole as it is, another motion come forward after to attend to some of the issues Trustee Whitaker has raised. Jordan, I see you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in that case, could we say to refer it to a standing committee or a May standing committee, just so that there's a little bit of flexibility, so that with the superintendent and Amos's schedule. And then we could refer that, and then I'd be really happy to support Trustee Whitaker's motion.
Okay, so sorry, just so I'm clear,
we're advanced, because I agree, we need the information to make the commitments.
So just so I'm clear, we're discussing referring to a May standing committee, not prescribing which one. Okay, so that's the referral motion. So on the motion to refer, Trustee Duncan.
Yeah, I think as long as it's clear what information is needed by the standing committee, by the time the standing committee comes around. What I don't want to see is unnecessary delay in terms of the superintendent having the necessary conversations with representatives from Amos, and so because I'm aware that there is a staffing piece here, and so timing and delay is important. So I have no problem with referring it if in fact another motion is going to come to the floor to allow the conversations between the superintendent and Amos, or is it Amos? I think it's Amos, to occur in the meantime.
Thanks, and hopefully somebody will correct us on what to call the acronym so that we're not always calling it the wrong thing. I trust Karen will tell us at some point. Okay, so we have the motion to refer to a standing committee in May. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the motion to refer. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is Trustee Leonard and Trustee Ferris opposed, the balance in favor. And now I hear there's probably another motion. Okay, Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, so not to get too wordy, that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to communicate or meet with Amos in regards to the possibility to secure donations to fund the full elementary strings program. Period. And maybe and a timeline. Yeah.
Do you have that written out, Trustee Whitaker?
It's just the first piece of the previous motion.
Okay, so sorry, before maybe it's late and I'm not processing. My apologies.
I'll get
This
it.
is on me. Before I get a
cut-
seconder, I just want the clarity. So we've just referred the initial motion to May, and now you're moving a motion which is essentially the first part of the motion we've referred. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's slightly amended, that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the superintendent to communicate with Amos Victoria in regards to the possibility, that's a bit of a change,
Right.
to
Okay.
secure donations to fund the full elementary strings program and report
so the
back
first-
at the ops.
So the first was about communicating with Amos about securing the donations, and this one is, sorry, I'm still trying to find, wow, it's different, and I'm not finding it, but maybe others will. We'll get there. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Duncan. Okay, maybe in your discussion, you'll get where I'm not able to get. Trustee Whitaker, do you have any further comments on that?
Well, yeah, my comments are that I really think it's important that these two parties talk so that when we meet at ops, as we've referred this motion, that it will be a more fulsome discussion. That I think that part of what's happening here is we need to hear what are the challenges of the district, and we need to hear what are the challenges of this group, and we need to somehow get that together and put in front of us. So I just think this is the opportunity for the conversation to happen so that when the board does meet again to discuss this, that we can be fully informed. I don't want to defer the decision again. I want the next meeting to have a good meeting.
Yep, understood. I have Trustee Duncan, you were the seconder, so you can motivate, and then I've got Elaine and Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty plain to see that, you know, we do need those discussions to occur. The superintendent is best placed to you know, engage in those discussions, understands the operational implications best, and the board clearly needs more information by the time we do engage in the debate at standing committees in the coming weeks, so that we can move, if the board does decide it wants to support the overall intention here, that we can move this forward in a timely manner.
Hey, Elaine and then Jordan.
Yeah, I'm going to speak against the motion, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, the artificial turf from Oak Bay Bays has got nothing to do, no equivalency to what we're discussing. That is a thing. We're discussing people's salaries, and that is the issue here for me, is the ongoing topic of discussing how to pay for people's salaries. If this motion does go forward, I would want the superintendent to make sure that the full amount was paid up front. That was part of the conversation, so that the secretary, treasurer, and staff are not running after people to try and find a payroll as we go down through the months of the year. Also, the music program has always been able to be delivered at no cost to the board through prep time in elementary school. That's how it was funded 20 years ago, and it's crept out of prep time, so now it's a cost to the district. If it goes back into prep time, then there's no cost to the district, and we're not having this conversation of how to raise funds externally. And then my last point that I wanted to make is, what about a group that wants to provide extra math for every elementary student in the district, or a literacy program? Are we then going to allow them to come in and fully fund the program because we've set a precedent here of taking a group who's willing to come in and do our staffing? So those are the fundamental issues I have with what the road that we're going down. It's not to say I don't love music, I do, which is why 20 years ago we got it into prep time, so we couldn't cut the program. And here we are, it's crept out of prep time, and now we're having to look at it as an extra cost to the district. So my hope was that it would go back into prep time, and then we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Any further comments or questions? Oh, sorry, Jordan. Yes, I had you on the list.
Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, I think Elaine touches on some of what I was saying earlier. There's a real ideological question here, and it is a bit of a Pandora's box. Unfortunately, it's just not quite as straightforward. Anyways, to Trustee Whitaker's point, I totally agree that we need to come forward and have a good discussion in a timely manner. So while I'm excited to be having the superintendent go and have a conversation about this, I also hope that Trustee Duncan, as the original mover of the motion, can come forward with a memo that has some really concrete information in writing. For me, that just helps me a lot to have a sense of like what is actually on the table here. That motion has 3 parts to it, each of which are somewhat distinct and have their own separate implications. So it would just help me to be able to in advance have a chance to sort of consider and work through all of those. I mean, that's just my hope. That's what I need in order to be able to make an informed decision, because I am just aware that this is while it's something, obviously we want to deliver what the community wants, that there's also significant implications for how that goes down the road. So we want to make sure that we do this in the best possible way.
Thanks, Jordan. I was going to put myself on the list. I'm going to support this moving forward, but I continue to be challenged with the same philosophical concerns that Jordan has, which have been I think, elucidated by Elaine. There is a potential for a slippery slope once you do open that Pandora's box, but of course nothing is ever as simple as black and white when we're talking about these kinds of things, especially with a program that we know is as appreciated and supported and supportive and helpful as this one. So I mean, it continues to be a challenge, but I will be unable to support the key motion that we've referred unless I have details. As somebody who takes and because of my own mental health challenges, processing is a struggle for me, especially on the fly. I need details ahead of time so I can review and look and consider and think. And I appreciate that this came forward very last minute, and that's why I'm saying let's refer it. So there's some more information that can come here. But I stress, in order for me to vote confidently on something like this, I need the info. So please provide it. I will go to Tom and then we'll vote. Tom, go ahead. Oh, nope, sorry. Well, Trustee Whitaker.
I just want to be able to close, okay?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So Tom and then Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I have concerns. I have concerns about sending the superintendent off on a fundraising mission. I also have concerns about the fact that we've never ever had a full strings program in elementary. And so I'm not sure that I even know what that would look like. So I won't be supporting this motion at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and Trustee Whitaker to close.
Chair, before Trustee, if I may, just I just have a question of clarification before Trustee Whitaker closes. So, can I assume that I will be invited then to attend some of the discussion should the board support this motion, so that I can provide more information in the form of a memo, if that is what the board would like, by the standing committee meeting in the coming weeks, because short of getting more information that should come from the discussions that is being proposed, should take place between the superintendent and the folks who are bringing the funding. I'm not sure what else my colleagues would like in the form of a memo. I would expect that if I was invited to attend the discussions that I could formulate that. But if there's something else in addition, then I would appreciate the clarification.
Sure. So from my perspective, I would say no. I think we have the superintendent, if this happens, to be instructed to meet. I think that's what happens. If there's a desire for someone to meet from the board, it would be the chair. But if you want to provide a memo, I can certainly let other trustees speak for themselves. But for me, I have timeline questions. I have questions around Victoria, who, Amos, who will secure donations. Are these funds already in a bank somewhere? Are they already in place? What is the planned distribution? What schools is this going to cover? Is this all schools? Is this just the 15 that had it prior? There's a lot of questions that I need answered for this. So there's a lot that's unclear for me here. That's just me.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's helpful. So can I ask then colleagues to just email me their questions so that I can make sure that whatever memo covers the questions. I just don't want us to be back here and going, we've got a lot of questions. I want to make sure that everybody has, to the best of my ability, everybody has answers to the questions that they have by the standing committees. Thanks.
Sure. So I'm going to go to Jordan, and then I saw Lane's hand up as well. So Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is helpful because I don't see this motion asking the superintendent to go away and come up with a plan. That's not what I see. So I think we're asking the sooperintendent to have a conversation so that she can give us her informed opinion, I guess. But if there is a rationale or a plan, Trustee Duncan, around why you are supporting this motion and why you think that it's doable and how you think it's doable, then that's what I would see going in a memo. Because the superintendent may give us a recommendation and may not, but I don't see this as asking, like the wording of that motion to me is not asking the superintendent to do a ton of work. We're asking her to have a meeting. Right? Like, am I clear on that?
Correct. Yeah. Which is why I want to know what you need, because we're just asking for the superintendent to have conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just want like your rationale and you working through what the implications are and how you see it working. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur too with that. Also, obviously, Trustee Duncan has had conversations with people that we don't know about. So maybe that can be referenced in her memo as to why this is coming forward in the way it's coming forward from her. But that wasn't what I was going to say. I wanted to see if the Secretary Treasurer or the interim superintendent had any questions for us, because this is the strangest motion I don't think that we've had around here for a long time. So I would like to know if they have any questions of us before the meeting is adjourned, before we move away from this, or direction that they are looking for or whatever, because we haven't heard from either of them. And I think that would be appropriate in the course of the strange motion that this is, to have that feedback if it's so needed.
Either Superintendent Whitten or Secretary Treasurer Morris, either or both is also fine.
Sorry, go ahead.
I can start.
Shouldn't have asked for both.
Thank you. At this point in time, I don't have any specific questions, although I do appreciate the opportunity to come back if we do have them. I anticipate including the Secretary Treasurer in the meeting, as well as potentially the Deputy, as we look at staffing and look to try and clarify timelines and costs and what we would or could do. I do see this as an informational meeting so that I can bring back the further info to the ops. So I, at this time, don't. I will be reviewing different policies and regulations, and then again, we'll lean to the Secretary Treasurer for funding mechanisms and any questions that she may have as well.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Morris, any additions?
Yes,
or
I think Superintendent Whitten's covered it. I would be interested in reading the memo from Trustee Duncan before heading into the meeting, just to have some background or some context around what we might be discussing.
Okay, and I'm gonna jump to the vote, but before we do, Trustee Duncan, go ahead.
Hey,
Oh, no, sorry, Trustee Whitaker hasn't closed yet.
I'll email
Sorry.
everybody.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, please go ahead and close. Thank you.
okay, thank you. I just want to clarify to everyone that I am speaking to the motion to have the superintendent meet with this group to gather information. I think that we kind of got a little sidetracked about all the planning and what this would all really be, and that it was a crazy motion. This motion is not crazy. This is just about having the superintendent meet with a party who has an interest, who wants to offer support to our district and has specific ideas. I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for learning to happen on both sides. It is an opportunity to build relationships. It is an opportunity to dream, and it is an opportunity to really hear each other's stories, and hopefully to, you know, put those kids at the center of that discussion and come forward with information for the board so that we can then look at that and go, well, what can we do? There are other opportunities. There are other options. If somebody wants to provide a donation, I mean, Trustee Ferris even discussed about how the foundation was literally intended to support programs that were outside of the timetable. So not that I'm saying that at the moment, but I think that there are a lot of opportunities that if we were able to sit down and talk with each other, that there are opportunities that we could embrace to support our students. So this motion is to support that, and those discussions, whether they are fruitful or not is yet to be determined. So I'm not going to judge whether or not I need this memo or whatever. I think that's far too early in the game. This is about having some real discussions that are focused on students and moving us forward to something different and not having this repeated conversation. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. That closes debate. I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify. And those opposed, and that is Trustee Ferris and Leonard opposed, the balance in favor, the motion carries. Any notice of motions? I guess we have none because I have none here. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Trustee Duncan, seconded by Angie. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you all very soon. And thanks